Welcome back to episode 10 of Oneself. With me today, and with me always, is Adam Bartleman.
What's
Adam,
up?
thanks. Yeah, what's up? What's up, dude? Yeah, dude, pleasure to see you, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
glad
man.
you're, in your travels, you are safe and sound where you are, because wherever you go, there you are, man.
Exactly. And you too, man. Yeah, good to hear
Yep,
your trip
yep.
went well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we both had some travels, so yeah, glad we're safe and sound and where we are, there we are. And yeah, man, so before we hopped on, right, we were talking about what it means to have anything to say worth saying, right? And the repercussions of saying those things. And we kind of settled on this topic for today of have the courage to be disliked, and because when we've seen this, right, in our experience, when we're engaging in social media, when we're posting clips or anything, and Adam will say, if it's a 50-50 split, if it's a 60-40, 70-30, whatever it is, right? If you have anything worth saying, some percentage of people is going to be, in those comments being like, I hate this, and some percentage of people in those comments are going to be like, I love this, right? Or like, this was really profound, or I got a lot out of this perspective. um Something as simple that I think is a universal truth is just is love, right? Just being about love and being an evangelist for love. You get people being like, that's lame, or you know what I mean, or like this guy sucks, and it's just like I'm preaching love, you
yeah,
know, and I'll still get some blowback from preaching what I consider to just be like a universal truth, man, like just something that is worth fighting for. And you're going to get some people who are rooted, in what I would consider to be an unhealthy mind space and coming at you in the comments because we trigger something, right? Like, we set something off in their fight or flight that is like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," like, like, and, but again, when we say like, have the courage, right? Like, have the courage,
yeah,
like, how do you move anything forward in time? How do you progress humanity in any way, shape, or form? Look at anybody in the past that was saying something worth saying, and maybe they were killed because of it. When it comes to like the civil rights movement, right? A whole generation of leaders just decimated because they had the courage to say something they thought was right and that they stood up for. And what was the blowback? You have the segment of the population that didn't like that at all, and so that's our jumping off point for today, man. Having the courage to say something, to push us forward, to push humanity forward. And yeah, any opening thoughts on this?
yeah. It's an important thing to think about when you're getting that blowback. Just considering where it's coming from, and to always apply the agreement to not take things personally,
Yeah,
because oftentimes it is just touching on someone's trauma. If they're coming at you disagreeing or trying to pick it apart, say we're talking about love and people are saying, like you said, that's lame or, virtue signaling or something like that. It's like,
yeah. You
sure,
hippie.
yeah, sure. These things can also be true we can hold that dichotomy knowing that things can be true depending on what perspective we're looking from. They can be opposing truths and holding space for all of that, holding all of it, holding the frequency of all those things and accepting all of it in order to bring it into resonance and move forward to the next clearest truth that comes into our awareness.
Yeah, dude. I
But
think that you said, oh, what, go for it.
no, I was gonna say, hopefully that's not too vague, but but
Yeah,
but
yeah. There's people gonna be mad at you, dude.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
He's too vague.
Yeah,
But yeah, dude, I think yeah, I really resonate with that. Multiple things can be true at once, and I think oftentimes people don't consider that, right? They think that, it has to be one way, it has to be another way. And you can say something that you believe in and that you consider to be true, and and that can also yeah, like just shoot someone off in their reality and upset them, right? And so those feelings are true to them, right?
yeah,
And so it's like I'm not denying that someone's lived experience is different from maybe how I feel about something, right?
Yep,
But
exactly.
again, there are things worth fighting for. And a lot of we were talking about this too, right? Like a lot of society's rules are just that, just like constructs, just rules.
Yeah.
They're made up. They're made up. And we were talking about, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, violence was almost encouraged and accepted in our society towards women, towards other human beings. In American society, we had friggin' slaves, dude. Like that,
Mhm.
that was considered okay which is awful, right? In just the broad scheme of things. And so, just because something is accepted now in our time frame, that doesn't mean it's okay, right?
Yeah.
And when you say something, when you call something out that we see is not okay in our society, and we're like, that's messed up. What perfect example, right? What's going on over in the Middle East. And you have again these two opposing sides. Some people saying, it's okay, and then other people are like, there's millions of kids, hundreds of thousands of kids starving, right?
Mhm.
And there's a genocide and all this stuff, and you have those two sides coming at each other, right? I'm, I'm on the side where I think that shouldn't be okay, right? That shouldn't be accepted. It's an awful thing that's happening. But again, if you say something about it, you get all this blowback from the other side of the population. But what will history say about this moment in time? They will say that was a genocide, and they will say that this was unacceptable, and that people should have stepped in long ago to stop this. But so point to bring that up is just that, like, I know it's a hot topic, and I know, people are, it's awful, but it's just like, point being, it's like, we think these things are in the past. It's right now too. It's happening all over the
Mhm.
world right now. And again, have the courage to be disliked, right? In order to shed a spotlight on this stuff, in order to change things, you know?
Yeah, and it kinda comes back I mean, we can loop in the conversation on perfection there too because there is no perfect and because that our definitions of what is right and wrong evolve and change over time, that really because those are the conditions, those are the parameters of the game here that, like, there is no set right and wrong that is true down all down the ages. It allows us the ability to constantly create something better, to constantly change our idea of what right and wrong could be. Like, you've given the example of slavery. Like for most of human history, that was considered okay, back um all over the planet really. It was
Yeah,
only more recently that that's not has been considered not okay, and yet at the same time, because of the size of the population on the planet, it's also, according to some statistics and reporting, a worse problem than it's ever been in the history of the planet.
yeah,
Um, and so, while most of us would agree that this is not okay, there are still people on the planet right now who think that it is okay because they're engaging in human trafficking. And in order to understand and evolve past it, we really have to hold space for the idea that there are people who think that that's okay. Because if we push them away, if we push away people that disagree with us and create that division, we just further entrench that polarity when we have to understand that there's an aspect of all of us in everyone and everyone in us. In order to understand and bring things into resonance, there has to be a level of acceptance for it. Not saying that it's okay and that we're choosing to create that anymore. We're not saying the behavior is okay, but we have to accept the people that are engaging in that behavior. We have to accept the people who disagree with us because it's only in that space that anyone is ever going to be able to come in to any sort of resonance with each other and maybe see the error of their ways, maybe we can see some of the errors of our ways because again we're not sitting here thinking that we're perfect just because we disagree with what seems to be an obviously wrong thing like slavery or genocide. We have to always hold the awareness that we are operating with blind spots too, because we are moving through this world looking primarily through through the lens of the ego, which is by its very nature limited and finite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people exist in ignorance, right? And that's not necessarily a problem, or I mean, I think it is a problem, but it's not necessarily their fault, right? We're for the lack of education or the lack of curiosity. That's why I think curiosity is such a big thing for being a human, to be curious about the world so you can understand it. And there's this quote I love. It's he was an Italian philosopher, died in a Mussolini prison in the 1930s, when fascism was on the rise.
Mhm.
And he was like, pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. What does that mean,
Mm,
right? And he was, and so it's like, be aware of the things that are happening in the world. And if they upset you, they should. And if they anger you, they should. Like, there's a lot of injustice and there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of suffering that we place upon each other as human beings. But use that not to get bogged down in nihilism or just hate or whatever. Like, use that as a catalyst for in a reason that you want to change things. Optimism of the will, right? Don't let it destroy your spirit, right?
exactly. Yeah. Don't let it destroy you, because understanding that we wouldn't have without ignorance, then we wouldn't have awareness. Without pessimism, we wouldn't have optimism, you know? Like, these we exist in a polarized like dimension. We exist in a polarized reality. This is the whole purpose, really, or one of the purposes of coming here and existing here, is experiencing limitation. Like, we experience the limitation of we experience the challenges that come with the limitations that are associated with freedom and oppression, with hot and cold, with light and dark, up and down. Like, these things are all a necessary aspect for us to come here and express ourselves. And it's in understanding all of it and bringing it all into coherence again, like resonating with each other, understanding that we are all that we're all of it, that essentially, that if we're all one, we need to accept all of it. Not to say that we, again, agree with the behaviors, but we have to understand that it is a part of us, and that we, in bringing it into resonance, this is how we move through it, and find that optimism of the will. Because if we don't, we get bogged down in it, right? What was it? Pessimism of the intellect, like that's how
Yeah.
we would get lost in it, because the intellect is that finite aspect of our awareness. Like, believe it or not, most people, existing on our planet, we're operating primarily through the intellect and think that it's the be all end all, but it is really the lowest aspect of our consciousness. And it's easy to get lost in it and feel hopeless, and find that pessimism of the intellect, if we're identified with it. So it's about, identifying with the will, identifying with the heart, identifying with the intuition, and knowing, like, hey, that that person on the other side of the fence who disagrees with me, they're not only like similar to me in many ways, they are me. We're all one here. So uh, it's kind of like when if we really want to change and leave behind fighting and disagreement and ignorance and oppression on this planet, we have to stop behaving in the ways that we don't want to see anymore. When we disagree with someone and we're angry at them for disagreeing with us, like, that's just profoundly ignorant in and of itself, because it's just feeding that energy into it some more. Like, we have to accept that we're all of it, and understand that feeding more energy into division just creates more division. We're not gonna, again, you're bringing up, mentioning civil rights movement, like Martin Luther King said, just paraphrasing, because I can't remember the exact quote, but you don't fight hate with more hate.
Right.
Like, you need only love can solve a situation with too much hate. And, these are simple truths. And as we say, as we often say, the simple truths are the most profound.
Yeah, man. I and there's examples I've seen in my life where people are like, I could never, approach a person with love. You'd be surprised what showing someone who you think you hate and they might hate you. And I'm not saying be naive, and I'm not saying, just, I know the world is a dangerous place, but you'd be surprised at how when you show someone that you're opposed to and you show them love, they might be your most loyal supporter like in the
Yeah.
future. They might be
Mhm.
in your corner more than you think your friends are, right? I've seen that in my lifetime, where someone turns an enemy into a friend, and because that person saw something in their enemy, right? It's not like they're like trying to kill each other, but someone there, a nemesis maybe is like a softer name for that. Um and yeah, it's like, yeah, my nemesis again with superheroes. But that that nemesis, right, or whatever, like when you create a situation where you're not coming at them with what they expect. Again, flipping the script. We've had that conversation. You're flipping the script of what they expect. They think you're coming at them with hate. And then you kind of confuse them when you come at them come at them with love. And that's all anyone really wants, and that's all we want, right? Is to be loved. We're all just
Yeah.
searching for that childhood instinct, right? And so when you flip that on, and you've seen this too, like there was the movie like the Black Klansman or whatever, like with Denzel Washington's son, and the real
Mhm.
story, the real true story of like when this black police officer, this African American police officer, went undercover as a KK Klans member, and he flipped a Klans member to be like a friend. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because again, he came at him with love, and this man was rooted in racism. He was rooted in hate in his entire life, and fear. He did not understand. He did not see African Americans as people, right? And
Yeah.
then this guy comes along and shows him understanding and love, and he flips his heart, right? And I'm not saying everyone is open to that, but you'd be surprised, right? Like what
Yeah.
happens when you show people love instead of what they expect, which is hate.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful part about our reality is that it actually, despite everything that we have going on the planet, which might create a pessimism of the intellect because of all of the material evidence for things going awry, the violence, the oppression, and all of that. Uh, the truth of the matter is what underpins our entire reality here is love. Our experience of pain and suffering is a result of a misunderstanding and a misuse of our free will, which is a very important part of our experience here. But what the undercurrent is love, and that's evidenced in those anecdotes in stories like that where you come out someone with love and like in the story of the dealing with the Ku Klux Klan guys, and it can flip people because the truth of the matter is that if someone is mired in hatred and division and that it's underpinned by fear. It's distortion. So that the ignorance is fear. Fear is ignorance. It is a distortion. It is not. It is something is out of alignment, and it's based in fear. So if that and it is so easily overcome with a sincere application, a sincere and wise application of loving energy, and because that is such a truism that you can overcome fear with love. It's just we've all experienced it. Like if you get in an argument with somebody, we are energetic beings and we are existing through this polarity and we are expressing ourselves in a polarizing way. If somebody's getting angry at us, we think that we're gonna get somewhere by expressing anger back. This ping pong match of of anger and fear being projected at each other, when really you take the wind out of the sails of of the other person, like, if you just respond with love, it works every single time, no
Yeah.
matter what kind of person you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with someone who is in a position over you, like a boss at work who's treating you poorly. If you're dealing with your romantic partner or friend, if you're in an argument, all you have to do is just step back for a minute, zoom out, and dial it back, dial it down, and remember it's all love. And then it's just it takes the wind out of their sails of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Takes the wind out of the sails of the entire argument. It's the other person. It's not about like winning the the argument.
Yeah.
It's just diffuse the entire situation. And this plays out on a global scale, and you can see how immature we're choosing to be collectively. You can see how unevolved humanity is by the way we're expressing ourselves on a global scale. Like, nations are engaged in pissing matches with each other. It's just
Yeah.
like but it's unbelievable that we can
Yeah.
still think of other people as different from us, like what's
Yep.
going on in Gaza. The fact that that can still be happening means that people don't understand at all, or whoever's, orchestrating these things doesn't understand at all the concept of oneness. That, you're going to find more similarities with yourself. You're going to find more similarities with your enemy than you would think. And as you said, you might have more in common with an enemy, a so-called enemy, than you would with a so-called friend. Like, I remember thinking about this when I was a kid, and the whole 9/11 and ensuing, war in Middle East, terrorism, and all this was going on. I'm like, man, if you took somebody out of a cave, supposedly in Afghanistan, and sat them down with, an American or, Canadian, European person who thinks that these people are their enemies, like, you sit in a room with somebody for half an hour, you're gonna find way more stuff in common than you have, like, in opposition to each other. That's just the nature of it. Like,
Yeah.
we're all exactly the same. Maybe some slightly different
Yeah.
beliefs, but yeah.
Dude, the most effective technique for, yeah, military intelligence services, the FBI knows this, is treating like they say they treating that person, like say, that Taliban member in Afghanistan, if they take him and sat him down, you don't get information out of torturing them.
Mm,
As the intelligence communities in America have been guilty of in the past, these awful torture programs. It does get people to open up, becoming their friend, you
yeah,
know? And you can save a lot. Like the FBI knows this, and like if they are interrogating someone, they're like, "Do you want a cigarette? Do you want some meat food?" You
mm,
know what I mean? Like they get the people to open up by treating them nice, right? And you can
yeah,
save far more lives by befriending someone rather than causing them immense amounts of pain. And
yeah,
this conversation actually stirred something up in me. Probably saved my life. Um, when it comes to showing an enemy love, and I'll get into the story. So yeah, so here's an example in my life that I think probably saved my life of just treating an enemy with love.
yeah,
And not that we became friends afterwards, but like I'm still here. Like I'm still
yeah,
alive, you know? And so my parents were having tons of issues with one of their neighbors. There's only one road that leads to my parents' home. It's a dirt road. It's not owned by the town or whatever, so it's just like this dirt road. And there's a house before my parents that was like claiming they own the road. They didn't own the road. There was no like paperwork, legal or otherwise, that said they own the road. It was just a dirt road. Um, and so they didn't like that my parents were using it, and the people on the property next to us were using this road to get to their property. So they put a gate up in front of the road that only they had the key to, blocking my parents and their neighbors from accessing their homes.
mm,
And so it was an issue. The cops didn't do anything. The town officials didn't do anything. They're like, it's a civil matter. Like, go deal with it in court or mediation or whatever. Um, it kind of reached a high point when the husband of the couple with the gate shot at my dad with a gun, claiming he was hitting a fox. or shooting at a fox. He wasn't shooting at a fox. He was trying to scare my dad, and he did. You know, my dad was a little shook up from it. Understandably, you know, you're getting shot at
Mm.
by a neighbor, and so there was a lot of tension. Right, tensions were high. And one day I'm visiting my parents, and they have these two big dogs, these cane corsos, these Italian mastiffs. They're
Mm.
nasty dogs, man. They're like
Yeah.
they encourage them to be, the UPS guys hate them, the mailmen hate them. They encourage these dogs to just friggin' scare the shit out of people. And so I'm driving up this road, and the dogs like come bounding out of the woods, like, and I chasing after my truck. And so like I speed up to get away from the dogs. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, they come out on like their ATVs and their UTVs, and they're armed, and they surround me, my truck, like park in front of me, park on the side of me. The sun's behind me. You know, I can't get out of there unless I want to run someone over. The dogs are circling my truck, and they're like, and like the wife comes out and she's like, "I'm not gonna hurt you." But and I'm like, okay, like you know, that everything you've done, it says, is against me. My heart's racing, fight or flight. And so I roll my window down, and she's like, "You hurt my dog." She's like, I would kill you, ba ba ba. And I was like, "Ma'am, I wasn't trying to hurt your dogs. I was trying to get away from your dogs so the truck didn't hit them." And she was like, "That doesn't matter." She's like, "Those are my bait." Like, and I was like, "Ma'am, like, I understand, right?" I was like, "There's a heart in here somewhere," because she has
Mm.
horses, you know, like she cares about her animals, which I can see. I can resonate with that, right? Like, you know, animals are great, right? You know, and so you know, I know there's a heart in there somewhere in this Grinch little body of this woman, and and so I'm like, "I know those are your babies. I know animals are family. I wasn't trying to hurt your babies." And she was like, "Well, all right." And I was like, "Do you know who I am?" Because we never met before. And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I know you're, you know, my parents' son or whatever." She's like, and I was like, "Yep, that's absolutely right." And I know that there's been, you know, a lot of tension here, but look what you've built. And like the husband was a contractor, so they had this beautiful home, you know, this beautiful barn for the horses. Like it's a beautiful property. Like they're, I don't like them, but it's a beautiful
Yeah.
property, right? You know, and I'm like, look at this beautiful place you've built. And I'm like, why do you want to like live in hate? Like, why are you, we just want to live in peace. You know, like, why are you doing all this? Like, we just want to live in peace. And, and I was like, don't you want to do that? You know? And they're like, yeah, like, you know, like they're like, I'm like, I could see the anger like
Yeah.
lowering, because I'm talking to them like I would a child having a tantrum. I'm like, it's okay. Like, ba, 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 like, my name's Steven, da, da, da. You know, I'm just like talking them off the ledge. Eventually, they friggin' shake my hand. Like, and I was like, my
Uh,
chase is like, you know, like my heart's still, and you know, but like they just, the way I handled the situation, they expected me to come at
yeah.
them,
Yeah.
right? And you know, the
Exactly.
gun on their hip and ba ba ba. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm like, I want peace between these families, you know, like, and they're drinkers, man. Like they're, you know, they've got stuff, they're, you know, going. Like I know, you know, they're, you know, they got their stuff, right? And I know they're heavy drinkers and ba ba ba, and like who knows if they were drunk at that moment too. But you know, they're coming at me with this energy, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I want peace. You know, otherwise
Yeah.
someone might end up killed. Like you've already shot at my dad. You know what I mean? You might shoot at
Yeah.
me if I was coming at, you know, if I hit your dog or whatever. You know, or if they thought I hit their dog, or you know, I don't want to. I don't. You know, I don't want to hurt your dog. You know, I that's
Yeah.
not what I want at all. But even though they want to hurt everyone
Yeah.
who comes near your house. Um, and so eventually, you know, yeah, shook my hand, let me drive back to my parents' house, and that was kind of like the beginning of like an uneasy peace between us. Like
Mm.
there hasn't really been anything like violent since then. You know what I mean? So I just want to share that
Oh.
example of like they're not friends. I don't want to be friends with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was like we've reached neutrality of sorts, and they wave when we drive by and I wave, and I just, you know, keeping the peace, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, just like, so yeah, man, that was just a story I want to share of what we're talking about that might have saved my life.
Yeah. It's a great example, and thank you for sharing because it's all so simple, right? It's all just an energetic game we're playing here, and somebody's coming with that energy, and they're expecting you to respond in the same way. And really, all you have to do is put your ego aside and drop out of the mind and into your heart. And it's so simple and yet so difficult for people to embrace that and just live by it because of the attachment, because of the over identification with the ego, because of the stories. Most people are like, well, I don't want to think that I lost, you know, I don't want to think that I lost that interaction. I don't want to feel like I lost the battle. And really, what you're doing is winning the war in the only real way of doing it, which is through love. But it's that over identification with the ego that gets people trapped and not seeing how simple these things are. It's like somebody's coming at you, with that energy, you handle it perfectly. You just you just respond with love because it's like that. I think it was an old story, like a quote from the Buddha, something like that. Or a Buddhist monk. I can't remember, but it was like if someone's trying to give you if someone's trying to give you anger, you just look at it like they're trying to give you a gift that you don't want. If you don't accept it, then they have to keep it. And in that example, when it's this energetic gift, they're trying to give you, if you don't accept it, then they have to hold on to it, and it has to keep spinning around. They're creating disturbance and disharmony for them, which is the most likely way for them to then find that it's not something they want to be carrying anymore anyway, right? If they're forced to sit with it, to hang on to it, then they're gonna more likely figure it out. So you accepting it and getting angry yourself is not only a disservice to yourself, but it's actually a disservice to them, because if you create conditions where they're more likely to have to hold on to it, they're more likely to have to figure it out themselves and figure out how to hold that energy and bring it into resonance themselves, instead of just trying to offload it onto other people. Because if we're out here trying to deal with our pain by trying to give it to other people, we understand sometimes quickly, sometimes not so quickly, that that doesn't work. And to use the example by an American author, written about by this author, Resma Menakem, I think I'm saying his name correctly. He talks about it in terms of clean pain and dirty pain. So somebody's holding on to some pain, and like you're saying, maybe these people are, they're drinkers. Another indication, that's another red flag. There's probably some unprocessed pain there if there's heavy drinking going on, but they've got some pain and they're trying to deal with it, and the only way they know how to deal with it, the only way that has been modeled to them to deal with pain, is to try and get rid of it by giving it to others. But really, that doesn't do anything to heal the pain that they're having. It just spreads it. So clean pain would be hanging on to it. Like, if you create the conditions for them to hang on to it, they can handle that pain themselves and heal from it, work through it. But the dirty pain would be to pass it on to others. It creates the illusion of feeling better for a short period of time, but really it's just spread it. So it's like an infection. It's like that just spreads, rather than pulling off that bandage and pouring some rubbing alcohol on there and getting that infection out. It's just allowing it to just covering it up and allowing it to spread. So just a quick way of sort of giving an analogy by this author that uh, is how we deal with energy, and how that's really the best way, to deal with it, is to deal with it ourselves. And if we through our awareness can tell that someone else is trying to bypass dealing with their own pain by giving it to us, not only do we say no to that because we want to preserve our own inner peace, but we say no to it because we also love and respect that being that is going through that experience, and we want what's best for them. So we let them keep it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, man, yeah, it's just, it's really interesting. And this has been a revelation for me, like you said, like, you've instilled this in me where it's like this energetic game, right? You know what I mean? And so when, like, people send that my way and I flip it back and I'm like, "Love," and they're
Mhm.
like, "Dude," it levels them, you
Yeah.
know? And that was the most dangerous situation I've done this with, but it's like I apply it everywhere, you know, in my day-to-day life. Driving, right? You know what I mean? If someone does something dangerous, I'm not flipping them off, I'm giving them a thumbs down, like a little bit of shame. You know what I mean? Like just a little bit of like, "Hey, I didn't like that." But I'm not mad, like, you know what I mean? You know, but I just didn't like it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so like
Yeah.
people might laugh or they might, you know, like they might, you
Yeah.
know, it's like I'm not gonna, you know, have someone try to run me off the road because I'm flipping them off and, you know, "Fuck you, ba ba ba." Sorry. Let me turn that off. I thought I turned my ringer off. But, and then, yeah, man, so it's just like I'm always constantly like, you know, yeah, like you know, like water, man, like taking that energy, foof, like throwing it right back at you with, you know, something better because it's just not worth it, right? It's just not worth engaging in the anger and the hate and where these people are rooted in. And you know, one small act of this, you know, as many, you know, can make a difference. It certainly did in my life. You know what I mean? I don't even know, you know, if they would have who knows what they would have done, right? If I was, you know, yeah, you know, drove over their quad or, you know, smashed their stuff and, you know, you know, they probably would have shot me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, I have
Yeah.
claiming self-defense on their property. You know what I mean? Like if like
Totally.
think of the other way I could have gone about that. And if I was rooted
Yeah.
in anger, you know what I mean, and tried to hurt them with my vehicle and then, you know, they're all armed. I wasn't armed, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
just
man.
think of the inverse of how I could have handled that situation, you know,
Yeah.
and probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah, if there's alcohol and weapons involved as well, that could go really, really badly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, the energetic game, though. It's kinda like aikido or jujitsu where, you know, you're not trying to just meet somebody with that same energy, you're, like, working with their energy to let them to let it to let it to let it be its own downfall, to let you know, use that partner's size and strength against them, allow it to pass by you, work intelligently with it rather than having to just meet everything head on and just be like a bull, you know, like, it doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, you see the, you know, jujitsu masters, like, if you see videos or whatever, they're cool as cucumbers, dude, like,
Exactly.
you know, they are not stressed whatsoever, they're just, you know, just moving their body with the energy that they're receiving, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah,
react, 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 and they're loosey goosey. You know,
exactly,
like,
exactly.
they're water, right, with the
Yeah,
energy that is coming at them, and, yeah, that's a really good physical example of people doing this, not only mentally, right? Like, I was talking more of, like, a mental energetic exchange, but it's
yeah,
physical too, you know? Like,
yeah,
there's physical people that are masters at this, of, like, transferring that, you know, the violent, uncertain energy and just, like, working with it, submit, right?
yeah,
It's a really good point.
and yeah, and because it's all energy just vibrating at different frequencies, it's just it comes down to understanding that it's all the same. So somebody might have a profound spiritual awakening from practicing a physical martial art because, you know, they might realize so, you know, in such a poignant way, right? If they're like in a physical altercation with somebody that like, oh, the best way to move through life is like, yeah, path of least resistance, surrender. That actually becomes a powerful surrender is actually a powerful tool, powerful concept. That lived experience and maybe in a gym, like out on a mat, might be the thing that keys somebody's awareness to be like, oh, this applies to literally everything. You know, this is a big deal, and you know, it's cool. Those things can that awareness comes in many different ways, and it's a good reminder that the path is unique and different for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and what does it take to put yourself in those situations to learn, right? Again, we're going back to courage. The
Mm,
courage to do things that maybe are unpopular, right?
yeah,
For some people, but then will resonate deeply with others, you
yeah,
know? And that's worth taking those risks for, you know? I think that's worth I mean, you know, what are we here to do? Experience, right? And
yeah,
It's like, how do you make those experiences worthwhile? Like,
Yeah,
and again, yeah, we're all gonna die someday, but then there's like, oh, like we're all gonna die someday. Like, it's like
yeah,
it's the perspective of that there's a finite end for all of us. So it's like, what can you do to make your own path meaningful to you? Right? That's
yeah.
all that matters. And, standing up for things and fighting for causes you believe in and like when I see bullies that are neighbors, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, or, just standing up to, and again, it doesn't even have to be with violence. Like it could be like, I implore it to be with love because,
Mm.
because that's the antidote, right? To hate in people's hearts, and yeah, man. And I've seen it, I've used it, and god damn, it's powerful. I'm like having these revelations in like real time. You know what I mean? I'm just like, yeah, like I've
Mhm.
never really like sit and thought on how powerful it is, you know?
It's the only way that truly works because if you meet someone with that same level of aggression and you quote unquote win, you win the battle of the day, and at least as far as your ego is concerned, thinking that you have bested your opponent. Well, you haven't really done anything. You've just prolonged the war because you've still created an enemy. You've further entrenched your enemy in their position. We're using uh, like
Military. Yeah,
puns intended.
yeah,
Um, because it's true. You didn't do anything to solve a problem because it is an energetic issue, and maybe it goes away for a while and it seems like you won. Maybe it goes away for a decade. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that energy doesn't pop back up, rear its head until the next generation. But you're still you as an individual might not even be dealing with it anymore, but maybe your children are, and maybe your community is. Really, we have to understand always that we're not operating here as individual beings. We're a collective. So whatever you do to not show love to someone else, again, you're maybe creating a problem for someone else on down the line. And you have to understand, well, we come to understand through our experience one way or another at some point that that is the same thing as us. If we are causing pain or discomfort for another being, it is the same as causing pain and discomfort for ourselves, because again, there's really only one self here. So
right.
yeah.
There is again, back to the civil rights, but I think this is one of the best examples I've seen in recent history of someone implementing this. Fred Hampton, was a civil rights leader in Chicago, unfortunately murdered by the FBI, the Chicago police. I don't know, but he was murdered, or both, I think, actually, if my memory serves me. But he was taken out by the U.S. government for sure. Just like, Martin Luther King, just like Malcolm X, just like, probably JFK and RFK, just all these people trying to
Yeah.
help, right? But what Fred Hampton did before he passed, and he was a young man, I think he was like 21. So he did this as a young man, and just the
Mm,
power that this guy had in his short life. He was an incredible orator, a incredible unifier of people. Not only was he working for the causes of African Americans, he united, Illinois rednecks and Puerto Ricans, like all these different groups in Chicago and Greater Illinois. He united them under the cause, and he walked in these places. He could have been killed, by gangs or whatever. Like he just balls, man, like balls of steel,
mm,
walking into some of these places as as a black man, right? And there's danger, but he walked out converting enemies into friends, uniting them
mm,
in a shared cause of like he just got people to understand. It was like, hey, it's not me versus you, it's like us versus them. and
mm,
and still the case to today, right? But and probably that was too dangerous, right? For him to be allowed to continue to spread that message and for him to continue to work his power, outside of Chicago or beyond, right? They had to, powers that be just snuff that out, right? But I just want to yeah, honor him and honor the example that he set for everybody, right?
yeah.
And just like, man, I've never seen anybody do that, um
Yeah.
like he did at the age he did, at the time he did, like just what a life, you know, and again, had the courage, right? Had the courage
Yeah.
to say something that, obviously people disagreed with. He lost his life because of it.
Yeah, and in moving in such a degree of integrity and love, his example lives on, and, uh, really understanding that even though the physical body dies, that example carried so much energy with it that moves on down through the generations, and we remember that person, we remember that example, and taking it even further to realize that, like, once we unite the smaller factions of people and it's like, okay, it's us versus them. It's not us versus each other. It's us versus them. Even that's an illusion too. And we come to collapse that whole loop that we're in collectively. Right now we're dealing with the oppressive force on our planet that more people are becoming aware of. The whole sort of 1% thing, way of putting it, the way that our world is run, understanding that even that is a collective expression, even that is a part of us, and coming into an understanding of that energy and seeing that that polarity exists within all of us because uh, as we know, as within, so without. Just a drop in the ocean, but the entire ocean in a drop. Really, really appreciating oneness to understand that even the darkest agendas on this planet are an aspect of our collective, our co-creation, and not agreeing with the behaviors, but bringing into acceptance and understanding and resonance that which is behind all of it, and understanding that it's just all comes down to personal responsibility. So I'm kind of laying out a broad topic there, or a broad point, but then bringing it back to something a little more focused and personal is if we want to affect that, then we have to again always tend to our own personal well-being, our own inner landscape, in order to ameliorate the entire collective. That's really how we make that change.
And with that, everyone, I think we're going to wrap up episode 10 of Oneself. If you liked what Adam and I are talking about, if you resonate with it, I sent Adam this quote the other day. Timothy Leary said, "Find the others, right?
Mm.
Find the others that are thinking like this, that are moving like this, that are walking through the world like this, because you're not alone, right? Find us and engage with us and support us, and us too, like us with others. Like we're searching for you. So we hope you find and we hope we continue to move forward and build a better world together. And if you like what you heard, shameless plugs, subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment. We're listening. We want to hear what you have to say and maybe bring it up in a future episode. Um, so that being said, I think we're gonna wrap this episode up. Adam, any closing thoughts for, having the courage to be disliked?
Yeah, the most authentic you can be. That's what's called upon. That's what's called for, I should say. How we are being called upon is to be our most authentic selves in a world that most of the time demands that we copy some made up trend, that we be the same as everyone else, that we conform. And really, the most profound act of resistance is the most profound act of self-love, which is being most authentically you. So don't ever forget that.
Thanks so much, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Right on.